Hey Amy, okay, so here's your past life spread, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at where we go, where you are, the thing that you do with the majority of your time right here, an important day with the relationship and the feelings involved, another important day, the death and the lesson learned. And I set the intention for those two things you wanted to find out about. So we may get one here and one in another reading, or a mixture of both, I don't know. So let's just go ahead with it and see where we go. So basically I'm just going to tell you the images and impressions that I'm getting, and your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can from what we see here to your current life, and I will try to help how I can. Alright, so let's start. So here we have Africa. And so basically what I'm doing is connecting, and I'm like, where in Africa are we going? Because Africa, it's not just like the Lion King. It can be like Egypt or Morocco, so there's all kinds of places in Africa we can be drawn to. I'm just trying to see what it is that we're looking at here. So it's interesting because the visual coming through is like this lush landscape. But the lush landscape does not feel like it's anywhere in like central Africa, if that makes sense. I feel like we're being pulled up and over. So it's like, I know that there's this big desert, like you think of the desert when you think of the Middle East or you think of Egypt, but in this case it feels like it's a very lush landscape over in that corner. So like the northern, what way is that? East. There you go. Northeast. So it feels like we're going there, where it might even be the Middle East, and it's very lush where this place is. And I feel like we're looking at a community that is relatively large, but today we wouldn't consider it that big. But for what we're looking at, it feels like this community is very like strong and thriving. And I'm trying to see the time that we're looking at here. That'll come anyway, that'll come. But so we're gonna go to what you did with the majority of your time. Here we have the leadership card. Wait, let's see, can you see that? There you go. The leadership card. Okay, so what this feels like is, it feels like we're looking at a male life. So already your connections can be, one, are you intrigued by or feel connected to any of the Middle Eastern countries? Is there one in particular that pulls at you? Or it's a kind of country where it's like very, what's the word? It's like almost like if this, it feels like Greece. I know it sounds so weird, but like it feels like when you think of Greece and you think of all like the plants and like the atmosphere of Greece, like there's an atmosphere of Greece, if that makes sense, like the essence of Greece, and it feels like that where we are up here. So it feels like even like there's an ocean nearby, or there's water, and you get the scent, the feel of the water, the wind, the breeze. It's so it's really interesting. So you also might be pulled towards Greece too. And if you are pulled towards Greece for the atmosphere of it, it would be the same as this place. So I know that sounds kind of weird, and I haven't had that yet, but that's the best way to describe this. So keep that in mind as well. There is something about a lush landscape. If you like the lush, like forest, if you prefer forest over desert, or forest over mountain, or something like that, keep that in mind as well, because it's a very lush place. And how you can make a connection with that, like kind of in an opposite way, is because you experience this very lush existence, you could have come back in this life to kind of desire to be in a more barren landscape, like a desert, or somewhere where it's very cold, or you know what I mean, that kind of thing. So you would either come back experiencing a desire for the same thing, or something kind of like opposite. So keep that in mind. Already this leadership role, you're a male here. If you have any tendencies, you feel like where you're a tomboy, do you feel like you have a lot of, what's it called, masculine energy, which isn't obviously like manly, it's just masculine. It's more, aggressive and forward kind of thing, which is cool. Keep that in mind if you do feel that way. Okay, so this leadership role, it does feel like, so for example, I've had this card for when somebody was basically like a camp counselor. So the leadership role can be a lot of different things. In this case, I feel like your leadership role takes place underneath your father kind of thing. So I feel like whatever is happening is you're in the family business, and the family business is one that people respect and also kind of obey in a way. It's kind of like if there was a chief, if this was a tribe, your dad would be the chief, you'd be like, you know, the next in line son kind of thing. But this isn't a tribe. It doesn't feel like a tribe. It feels more like a community. So I guess it's more like if your dad was mayor, you would be his, you know, what's it called, like right hand man, and then it would be expected that you would run for mayor one day, like that kind of thing, if that makes sense. So there is like a weird political thing to this, but it's not that it is politics, but I mean politics is involved in the community. So that's what it feels like. So again, in your current life, any connection you can make to that, where you're involved, like your level of involvement in the community. If you feel like you're missing something, it could be where you're kind of yearning for a community. You're maybe even it could be even something like trying to find people that you vibe with, trying to find people that get you, finding your tribe, so to speak. So it could be like a small group that you're looking for, you know, like only if these feelings are like, if it resonates with you. If you're someone that's like, I need to get out more and I need to do more things, or I need new friends, or I need to feel like I'm worthy or useful or productive or whatever it is outside of what you do for a living, it would stem from here, because this person is so highly involved in the community. So if you have an urge to be doing something, I would look to the community for fulfillment of that feeling. On the other hand, you could already be part of the community and very involved, and that would, your desire or passion for that, if that's the case, would come from here. Then there's also the thing where if you find that you're very isolated and you live alone and you don't want to go and be in crowded places, maybe you don't like being around people, maybe you're not like, you know, you don't feel like you're a people person or something like that. And if that's the case, it would, again, stem from here, because this is someone who is in the limelight. So if you're in the light here, you know, everyone's looking at you, knows who you are, supposed to act a certain way. You could have come back in this current life to be someone that hides away, or someone that doesn't want to be in front of the camera. You'd like to be behind the camera, like that kind of thing. And if that's how you feel, again, that would stem from here, just to experience something different. That can also actually be what these intentions that we're setting, that can also work into those intentions too, if you can connect it in that way, wanting to be behind the camera, wanting to kind of hide away, that kind of thing. So let's go to the first important day here. It's really cool. Here we have a marriage, and this can mean you're witnessing a marriage or you are getting married. It can mean so many things. So what we have with that for the relationship is the spouse card. And it's interesting because the feelings are neutral, and what is happening here is the feeling of being married to someone kind of in an arranged way, because your families are connected and it looks good and it sounds good, and it's, you know, it's kind of like perfect on paper. And so we're getting this arranged marriage where you don't really feel anything for this person, but you're doing your duty. And this also, so now as far as the time period goes, usually this like kicks something in or triggers something, because it has to do with like arranged marriages. So we're definitely looking, I mean, we're going, this is at least centuries and centuries ago. So obviously there's going to be arranged marriages, but I would say like we're not looking at ancient times. We're looking at like, it feels like what would be like, oh, I don't know. I'm trying to place it with what I'm seeing, because it's like very community, very like there's no electricity. Like I would say we're looking like prior to, this is like before the 1500s. This is what it feels like. Like I don't know when the Renaissance is or the Middle Ages, but I feel like we're looking at like the edge of the Middle Ages, like right at the end of that kind of thing. So check the dates for that. And as far as, check the dates for that, for when it occurred in this region too. The Middle Ages, like when they were getting out of it in that in the Middle East. Middle Ages, Middle East, yeah. Anyway, okay, so we're looking at someone who has an arranged marriage, there's no passion there, it's dutiful. So in your current life, how does it connect to you is if you are in a relationship and you find yourself not too happy, it could be because when the relationship started, it looked really good and it sounded really good and it was perfect on paper, so to speak. That's how the connection can be made. And now that, you know, you've invested time and effort or whatever, you find that the passion isn't there, or whatever you're feeling or wanting is not there. And that could be because you're not supposed to be looking for what's good on paper anymore. This is about what is, you know, best suited for your heart and soul. So this would be coming up if that's the case. If you're in a relationship, you're not happy, it's because you aren't with the person that is like getting the passion going, so to speak. And that person is out there. So if you are not in a relationship, it would also be because on a soul level, you could be waiting to connect with a person on that level rather than a person that looks good or is convenient. I guess that's the big word that's coming through, is convenience sake, is to stay away from a convenient relationship, or at least stay away from a relationship that is motivated by convenience or instigated or initiated because of convenience. Like, oh, it's a colleague, we work together, we see each other every day, that's an easy kind of thing, we'll just, you know, let's jump into something. No, it's more like, I would definitely say, you know, wait for what feels right. Or if you're in something, I don't know how you're gonna make it feel right, because it might be past that point, if that makes sense. But it's the kind of thing where you know what you don't want. That's what I want to say from this, is like, if you don't know what you do want, at least try to start filtering out what you don't want, whether you are in a relationship or whether when you're not in a relationship. What else is here? What else is here? I'm trying to see what's going on. There's something about how young you are too. So it's a really young marriage, but I feel like that's even common for here. But it's also, if that's what's coming up, it can be speaking to you in when it comes to romantic relationships, as far as the youth aspect, and then this feeling of like there's just like a lack of flame, like there's like a lack of passion. The youth and the lack of passion, there's something about that. I'm trying to figure this out for a second, because what's happening is it's pulling me in here where there's a feeling like it starts off like very low flame and then it builds over time, like an investment in a relationship. So it's basically like, if you can connect to investing in a relationship is more important, like giving a relationship enough time to heat up and catch flame, where it's like in the beginning it might not feel so easy. Okay, so what it feels like is, a lot of the times I'll be giving people advice about like, hey, a relationship, you should fall into it and it should feel easy and natural and this and that, and that's based on their past life. That's what I'm reading about. But here it feels like what's coming up is actually when you start a relationship in the beginning, it's almost like for you, what would work would be understanding that in the beginning there actually might be a slow flame, like a very low flame, where you might want passion and excitement right away. The right thing for you may be where it feels like a low flame and you're like, I'm not really sure about this, let's see how it goes. And you know, it might not look perfect on paper, is what I'm saying. Whereas this does in the beginning look perfect on paper. The relationship, it feels like the right one for you in the beginning. It may not feel right or look right on paper, but if you give it time and you give it space, is what it is. Like giving a relationship space to become a very like strong burning ember, if that makes sense. So it's more lasting. It might not be like that heated passion that is, you know, obviously intoxicating and addictive, and why people get married so soon and rush into things, because of that addictive passionate thing that fizzles out eventually. Here it's more like the message is look for the slow burning flame where there's that attraction is there and the chemistry is there, but it might not be this overwhelming passionate affair at first, and from that slow beginning it's going to just kind of start blazing, if that makes sense. So that's what I would have to say about the romance part, mainly coming through is that. So if that connects with you, if that resonates with you, awesome. The next day, what I wanted to get to here is the next day. And this is Mother Nature. So we're looking at a natural disaster usually when it comes to this card. And the relationship involved would be soulmate and feelings of joy. And what this actually feels like is what is like, I really wanted to get to this because it felt like this message was coming into this, because on this day what's happening is there is an uprest in the place. I don't know what it is, like I don't know if they have earthquakes over there, but there's something with the land that is being unrested, is disquiet. It's like, maybe, I don't know if there's even a volcano over there. Check and see if there's earthquakes over the Middle East, basically. But there's something happening to the land, and it's an emergency. It's like a state of emergency kind of thing. And your partner, this is years later. This is like after children. I feel like if the children aren't fully grown, they're like teenagers or something like that. So you've been together for a long time by now. And there's this thing in this moment where your partner refuses to leave you to go seek shelter, to go where it's safe. She refuses to leave you behind because for some reason, I don't know if it's your post, your station, like your job where you have to be where it's dangerous because of how high up you are or whatever it is, but she had the chance to go and she didn't. It's something about sending the kids off and staying by her husband's side. So there's something very powerful in this moment where that's the completion. That's where the realization, oh, I'm getting goosebumps too. It's like very emotional right here because this person, they both kind of realize that they actually care about each other very, very much. Like there's something very deep here that they've made without realizing after all these years, having children, living together, learning each other's habits, being kind of having each other's backs without realizing it. Because there was never hatred here. There was just like a kind of a mild distaste at first, like, you know, for arranged marriages, there's no love there. So, but it grew into love. And I think that's what we were getting at. The message is let it grow into love and give it space. Basically, give it space to grow into love. And how you can do that is a couple of ways. But basically, it's like giving a partner the means to be an individual while also in a relationship, because it's very hard for people because they think love means being kind of smothering and clingy and attached, and love is really unattachment. It's disattachment. It's not being possessive. It's giving space to someone because you love them and you want them to be their fullest potential. So that is a big moment here. Joy is involved, obviously. It's a very, very like wonderful feeling. And so with that said, I want to go here to the death card, and here we have an accident. And I'm trying to see if the accident happens here. Because I feel like something happens where it's almost like on this day you do get injured. Like it's a dangerous thing. Whatever happened, it's like a falling or something. I feel like it's an earthquake. So just check and see what's over there. What would make the land shift over in that area of the world. And but I feel like there was an accident here that happened that turned out to be something that was like prolonged and kept kind of like making you weaker and weaker and weaker until you died. And I don't know what that could be, except that it would be like something feels broken. Like let's say you broke a leg or broke a thing in your back, almost like it's higher up, like near the tailbone. It feels like that, where you fractured, or it's like you fractured something near your tailbone, and this put you out for a while, and there's like a lack of recovery. And I don't know how that, it might have been an infection. I'm not sure how it links to your death per se, but I feel like it is connected. So in your current life, if you feel like you have, I want to say anything with weak ankles or knees, keep that in mind. If you have rolly ankles or knees, Also, there's something about your back. If your back has hurt or has started hurting or aching, specifically, I feel like it's the lower back area. There could be other reasons for it, but it could very well stem from this kind of thing. Or keep in mind, actually, if try to see if wherever you live, if there are natural disasters that occur during those times, even rain, actually. If you're one of those people that all of a sudden your joints get achy, if your joints get achy when it rains kind of thing, keep that in mind as well, or start keeping tabs on that to see if it correlates. But yeah, basically I think more than anything would be knees or ankles and lower back is what we're looking at here. And then also fatigue, like chronic fatigue, just a weakness of fatigue for no reason. So keep that in mind. The lesson here is to dream big, and I think this lesson is really great, and it does speak to this because we do see someone who has a very full life, but this is also a life that is set with borders and boundaries because of who that person is. They're in the limelight, they have to act a certain way and be a certain way, and here in this current life we have more opportunity and more freedom. We can really just create who we want to be. We don't have to follow the norms or the regulations or whatever. I mean, it's expected of us still to some extent, but we are more individualistic than we were back during this time. So I feel like this card is really speaking to you, is to like kind of claim the individualism, and again, it's almost like have the fullest life you can, but also realize that any limitations that come your way are your own limitations that you're setting. And those limitations could be kind of like a soul memory from here, where this person was not only limited by society, but they allowed society to limit their own mindset in that way, following rules, arranged marriage, staying behind during disastrous things. I mean, it's the right thing to do in that circumstance, of course, but still obligations, duty, boundaries. Here we're looking at, yes, you learned this lesson because you dreamed big within the boundaries that you and society created, but here for your current life, it's like go for it, dream big, and don't allow society or your own mind or upbringing, belief system, core belief system, whatever it is, don't allow that to form boundaries or limitations around you this time, because this is a life, again, where you are not bound by duty. And I feel like that's a big thing coming up. You need to look back at your life and see, are you a people pleaser? Are you someone that did the right thing by your family? Did you do things in your life because your family or even good friends, whatever people you trusted, because they told you that's how it should be? Or you find maybe you don't trust yourself enough and you rely on the advice of others a lot, things like that. And if that's the case, it's time to recognize those things and recognize that they can be holding you back a lot. And also recognizing if they have held you back in the past, and not regretting it, not resenting it, but just realizing whatever has held you back in the past in that way doesn't have to be prolonged. You don't have to keep that going, even if it's expected to you because you've been doing something for so long. Every day, every minute is a choice for you to act differently or react differently or behave differently or become more sovereign for yourself and remove limitations. It's your life. You get to do that. I mean, yeah, it might be disappointing to others, but it's the kind of thing where it's like, what's more disappointing? You know, maybe someone else being let down by their own expectations, or you being let down because of what you're doing to yourself or allowing others to kind of have control over you in that way. So, if that makes sense. So, there's your past life reading for this one. I'm going to get to the next one soon. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make connections to it, and thanks for letting me read you.